subject of growing premises. Essentially one growing season.
Okay, so if it's a historical grow site and they don't grow it for a year, well then the daycare center can move in and.
They can use their grandfather's rights.
Correct. That's what I was asking.
No, that's not included.
And that's what I was wondering, should that be?
So do you want me to do that?
I think
is that the pleasure of the board?
I think so, otherwise you're just going to be grandfathered all over and then pretty soon you can't even go there.
So what you're saying is you'd like to see for that exclusion zone
the definition
issue.
of it, maybe an established grow, because you have the definitions of different things.
Sure.
And maybe a definition of an established grow.
Add a definition on the established grow, so that then refer to that.
Yeah. So an established grow would be something that's grown every year. But if it hasn't if you miss a 12-month deal with no growing, well then it loses its historical value or something.
Okay.
And then
You all good on that?
And the only other thing that I would like to see changed possibly is...
I'm sorry, I'm making a list and checking it twice.
Okay.
Well, it's just go from 11 acres to 40 acres. I'd like to see maybe change the 40 acres to 41 acres.
Okay.
Right.
I like
Okay.
on 3.
For the same reason it's not 10.
Page 5, number 4 has 40 acres.
Number 3 and number 4. Yes. So premises from 11 acres in size up to 40, I'd like to make that 41. And then number 4 for premises 41 acres in size.
Yeah, because a lot of your parcels, the way the parcels are set up and the zoning is set up, that would make it more consistent. Because otherwise you'll have an overlap. That's 1 acre that will be put, makes sense.
Okay. And then I guess...
So that's the only 2 things I actually have.
Okay, you good on that?
Oh, well, I'm good on that. I guess the question comes back to the proposed change on C1 to permit outdoor grows in some small number for parcels or premises, that are up to 1 acre in size. That's the question.
That's where we are now. And see what do we do? What you guys want to do? Don, you're looking at
Well, I just hate to limit these people who have a true need to grow indoors when they're living in a, I think the setbacks are necessary. I'm good with the 6 out and 6 in, but
May I make an observation, if I may? Mr. Chairman, if I may?
you may, Mr.
Thank
Council.
you. And I'm not expressing an opinion on it one way or the other, but because that's not my role. 215 and 420 provides for designating of a primary caregiver, which means that if for some reason you are not able to grow for yourself, which could include you're physically unable because you're too ill, all right, or for whatever reason you happen to own a small parcel in an area that's just been legislated away from being able to grow outdoors and you can't do it indoors, you may designate a primary caregiver on somebody who lives in some other location on a bigger parcel that does have the land to be able to do it for you. That's an option. Of course, that's dependent on everybody's personal circumstances, and it may not work for all. So,
If I could make an observation, we live in a county that's 4,500 square miles in size. I mean, that's a huge sandbox. Okay, and so one of the premises, I think, in terms of creating this tier thing, and why the 1 acre and less was, is because of the close proximity that people have. That's where you're going to have all your flashpoints. That's where you're going to have all your problems. Okay, if we didn't have the open space and the larger parcels available, then I think we have to deal with the reality of allowing, the outdoor grow in the small setting. Okay, now I realize it. This lady or that lady, can't do it on their own property, and that becomes a problem. But that is where the role of the caregiver comes in, and that's as Mr. Davis testified earlier this morning, he happens to live right next to the park, so it doesn't matter what your setback's going to be, from the park, he's not going to be able to grow on his property. So he, relies on Sharon, who lives a little over 500 feet away. She'd like to have the setback reduced from 1,000 to 500, but he's now utilizing her and to do that. And there are a number of the folks that came in over the last several months with their input, is that there's that network out there. So maybe just because where you chose to live is so small and so concentrated that you're not going to be able to grow that 6 plants or 1 plant or 12 plants outdoors. But through the network, there's other people out there. That's the guy who's got a not big enough parcel where he can grow 72 plants under this thing here, 12 for himself, and he's got room for 5 of his buddies. Well, those buddies are going to probably be the people who live on the small parcel. That's the way this thing is designed to work. And, I think the purpose is to try to make it so that where the concentration and where people live is going to have the least amount of conflict. And we got to get it right on this here, because if indeed the recreation thing comes to play, next year in the election, and now we are like Colorado and Washington, okay, this thing is going to magnify it 100-fold. And so I think, in terms of defining those relationships within the sandbox, we don't have a sandbox of 1 acre. We have a sandbox of 4,500 square miles. There is plenty of ground out there to grow on. So let's fix it so that can be done that. Let's encourage that to happen in that fashion. That's why we have farmers like Bob who grow on the big parcel south of town instead of trying to grow
Not marijuana.
Well, I'm talking about food crops. That's why we have farms that do that, and the people who live in town don't grow the crops in town because of what's involved there, the noise, the dust, whatever it may be.
Let this man make one comment fast.
I got to argue the fact on what you just said about growing vegetables and having somebody else do that. I tried that once. I got burned. I'll never do it again. The vegetables is just as big as my park garden. So you try to say that nobody can do it in town. I do it in town. And you guys are trying to say you're going to limit people. My garden, my mom has just the biggest garden. You can't just say that. That's wrong.
Okay, thank you.
It is.
Let's get back here to,
So we're back to the question of,
if we do 6 plants outdoors, you gotta have a setback.
No, we have Randy and Ted in here that did that for other people before, and I think there's an entrepreneurial advantage, and it eliminates the stuff in town. I say we leave it indoor only on the small acres. My personal opinion. You can farm out to somebody else and contract with them to grow it for you, whatever, if you want to be your caregiver. That's why we have the tiered approach.
Jeff, you got anything to add?
I'm just going to reemphasize that, they've been growing it already. We're making legislation making them break the law.
Now you're gonna have to.
Well, the law's been ambiguous as to whether what they've been growing.
Well,
yeah.
But that's what I'm saying.
But we have had incidents where people have had conflicts in that area. The reason why we're talking about today is because the
Exactly,
law.
and it doesn't make sense to grow 99 plants on a residential lot.
Well, all I can say is if we're going to consider, the only way I would consider voting for the ordinance to allow that, and I'm not 100% against providing for it. There has to be at least a 50-foot setback from an existing inhabitable dwelling on an adjoining parcel from where that growing area will be. And if it reduces it to a postage stamp on somebody's lot, then that's the privilege of being able to grow it outdoors. They aren't going to have the full swath of their property to be able to do it, because you don't have many square feet on a small residential lot. It doesn't matter what subdivision you live in.
Okay, I can support that.
There has to be at least 50 feet.
Somebody want to attempt a motion?
well,
He's got to clean this up.
yeah, I want to make sure I understand where you're going and hopefully get all the questions answered before I put it to ink and then present it to you for possible adoption. That's how I hope to deal with this. Do I understand it correct then that under the conditions of cultivation, C1, for premises less than 1 acre in size, you, the majority of the board, would want to be able to permit outdoor grow of 6 acres, sorry, I'm tired, outdoor grow of 6 plants, and how many inside?
6.
A total of 12, isn't
Total
it?
of 12.
If I could, I think a total of 12, 6 of which could be outside.
6 of which could be outside.
Total of 12.
With the setbacks in place.
Okay, what are the setbacks?
50 feet.
But when we say setbacks, we're not talking about setbacks from the property line.
We're talking about from an existing dwelling, not counting the
From an
dwelling.
existing inhabited dwelling.
So which brings up the question, if there's no dwelling within 50 feet of the property line, does that mean you can grow it on the property
No,
line? Or do
we
you
have
want
the
an
same,
additional?
we have the same setbacks we use.
Correct.
For the.
As for 1 acre to 11 acres, which is 50 foot from any existing dwelling, not counting the dwelling on the premises
Right.
where the marijuana is being grown, and 20 feet from any property line.
Yeah, so they have to set back within 20 feet, but if that setback of 20 feet in from their property line, where they put it, puts it within 50 feet of an existing dwelling next door, you can't do it. They have to
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, it would be the same definition you have in the second tier.
Okay, I can get that done.
You got it figured out? We have one more question here from this man. Yeah.
David Peter, and I want to talk about the public parks and schools. I'm not really going to grow anything, but I've occasionally helped plan a public park. And my question is, under this ordinance, what happens when I want to put in my beautiful park, and then there's a grower within, as currently written, it's 1,000, but we were talking about 500 feet. What happens then? Do we just give up on the park because we have one grower? Or
No,
a school?
absolutely not. Again, the way this is written, David, is that if there is already an existing marijuana grow and a park is planted within 1,000 feet of that grow, the only effect is that, as it's currently written, and there may be some modification to this over the break based on what Supervisor Outlaw said about, you have it grow and then you abandon it and then you want to try and use it again. But basically what it would do is it would, you remove from the people that put the park in the ability to complain about a grow that was
His
already in
grandfather's in
existence.
the grower.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
It
I
doesn't
got
it doesn't
Doesn't stop
preclude,
it.
it doesn't stop the park from being put in. It just essentially says to the people that are putting the park in, hey, look, you're moving within 1,000 feet, and you can't invoke this
Or
ordinance.
some other competitor of the grower or somebody else in the community can't come in and say, hey, look, there's a grow right next to this park now, so get rid of the grow. So the grower is immunized from the repercussions of having the park or a daycare or whatever that comes in after the fact. It's just that he can't establish it to begin with.
I think that answered your question.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, we'll get something done here.
Well, so what I'd like to do is, it's 10 minutes of 11. What I'd like to do is I'm presuming, Mr. Chairman, that we're going to have sufficient business this morning to carry us over the lunch hour. I'm presuming that, but I don't know for sure. I'd like the ability to not rush this, but to do this over the lunch hour with my door shut and the phone not ringing and nobody pestering me, so I get it right, and that we can come back at whatever time you prescribe this afternoon,
Our agenda says 1:30.
1:30, and we can have a full, complete copy with everyone to look at, if that's okay.
That's okay with me. That's okay with you guys. All right, that will be what we'll be doing.
All right. Thank you very much.
With that, we will take a 5-minute break and come back to the next item.